Hi there, I want to talk about compression into the front of the machine, or more accurately, over-compression into the front. Now what that is when, mostly the search for more length, people tend to slide too far into the front. So they come in and they really get past into the front. The shins are way past vertical and they're completely kind of curled up as a ball, which for most people ends up being a really weakened position to be in. There are a few that are exceptions to the rule that overcompress and they're still able to row faster that way, but in the most point, what you want to do is get to shins vertical and then drive out. Now, one good indicator of whether you're overcompressing is your heels. If your heels are coming way up off the foot plates as you come forwards, that's usually a sign that you're overcompressing. However, it's also, there's a chance that there's a sign that it's to do with your posture. If you have a poor posture, if you're sitting on the back of your seat and on the back of your backside, then what happens as you come into the front of the stroke is because of that rolled back posture, even with shins vertical, because of the change in the angles of all of my bones and stuff, my heels are way off the foot plates in this position with this poor posture. Whereas if I try and just settle my posture back down again, fair enough, I could slide a little bit more forwards here, but you'll see how my heels just came right down. I've got much better posture, ready to embrace my core and drive out from the front. So the cue here is that rather than sitting on the back of the seat and the back of your backside, sit on the front of the seat and the front of your backside, and that's going to help with your posture. You can think about that posterior chain. So that's that side of it. But when it comes to the overcompression, what you're looking for is to get to that shins vertical point, okay? Heels coming up a little bit is perfectly fine. Don't worry, the heels up thing is a sign of overcompression or poor posture, okay? So they can come up a tiny bit, but just, we don't want it to be like heels parallel to the floor, all right? But if you've got that habit of overcompressing already, then how do you stop yourself doing it? Because it's quite tough. You just quite in the middle of it. It's quite kind of hard to go, am I overcompressing, am I not? Now, there is a tip out there floating around on the internet about getting an exercise band and using that to kind of brute force your way into learning what to do. So you roll to the shins vertical position, and then you kind of put your thumb on the rail to kind of mark where you are, and then you get an exercise band and you loop it around the rail. How many times you do it is completely up to you, but this is a big one. So put it around the rail, make sure, yep, that's where I was. And then you row. So I'm gonna row, and if I try and overcompress, it stops me, right? So I'm getting into the front, shins vertical, and it stops me. However, that brute force, I mean, try it, because what was happening there is that my backside was getting bounced away from me. But it's also because it's a brute force solution. There's no real learning going on here. All you're doing is getting to the front and it stops you and you go off. So I don't really have any kind of neurological, is that right words? Response to this happening. It's just brute force, boink, and I go into the front. So what I prefer to do is get a piece of tape, okay? So, it's a Mawam wrapper. Don't tell the kids. Get a piece of tape, okay, which I've got here. Place that on the rail, okay, stick that down on the rail. And now what happens is as you get into that vertical position, the rollers roll over that piece of tape and you feel this little click in the seat as you go over it, but you can go past. So it's not bouncing you out in a brute force point of view. What it's doing is letting you know you're at the point you need to get. So you get in, click, drive out into the front, you feel that click, you drive straight back out. And you hear, you'll not only feel it to the seat, but you hear this every time you pass over it. And if you're the kind of person who isn't quite able to get into the front, into that shins vertical position, then you can use this as a way to kind of help you get forward. So if you think, right, I'm only getting here, right? And I want to get to here. So you leave that ultimate piece of tape on the rail, but what you do is you mark, again, you put your finger down on the roller to where you've got to, and then you put a second piece of tape on, slightly in front of where you're currently able to get to. And now, what you're trying to do is get into, it's only like a centimetre further forward than it was before, but I'm now trying to just get a little bit more compression, a little bit more flexibility to get towards my ultimate goal. And each time I manage it, when I start to feel that click from hitting this slightly further forward piece of tape, I can then move it slightly further forwards. And then I can keep on going to it. And then that will then eventually get you up to that shins vertical position. So that is my tip with a piece of tape in order to try and help you with that compression into the front. use that, and then hopefully that's going to work with that good posture to allow you to get to just shins vertical and push out. I hope. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this one. Remember, I've got a whole bunch of tips and workouts and all that kind of stuff up here that you can check out, so go check them out. Until the next time, row well, be well. Bye-bye.